Alright guys, so today we have a little bit of an interesting one. So I bought this Honda 300 four-wheel drive, you can see there, for $350. Old man owned it on a farm, some high school kid got a hold of it, tried to get it running again, couldn't, and so we have a bunch of kind of random mismatched parts here, but I believe the base of it is good. So a couple weird things I've noticed here. Not an OEM stator, but goes in, so it should be okay. The CDI boxes, I actually pulled them both off, but they're both from eBay. And so I got a new computer because I took apart this one and flip-flopped them over. This one had no spark. As soon as I put the computers from this one onto here, it had no spark. So I believe that the CDI box was the problem there. But another interesting thing. Well, first, I replaced the rear diff. Super easy. But whenever this is mounted onto here, you cannot turn it over with the Kickstart. And I'll show you kind of what I mean by that here in just a second. So first things first, the Kickstart does work and the bike is in neutral. So when I kick it over, I'm able to do it by hand. Never, when this case is off this side, never actually kick down because you'll actually mess up those teeth there. But you can do it by hand, and as long as it turns over fairly easily, as you see it does, then it's all right to do. But what it's doing when this other side cover is on, this will be up here, and I cannot get it to move. So what I'm going to try to do is diagnose kind of why that's happening and then fix it to kind of show what is out of place that would cause this to lock up in this position. All right, so knowing that it will turn over freely with both sides of the engine cover off, the first thing I'm going to do is inspect this side here and kind of check out those abnormalities and see if anything is just catching on it or if it was ever even able to spin with this stator on. So I'm going to look at the tops of this stator. It looks really new. There's a little, oh no, that wipes right off. That's not even like carbon buildup or anything on there. So the stator looks pretty new. There are some little rub marks there, but nothing bad. And if you don't know, this stator goes inside of this little tunnel here. I believe it's not the flywheel, I don't know. Goes inside of here, and as the bike turns over, this collects a charge, which it then sends to the rectifier and basically creates, that's how it charges the battery system and a couple other things. But anyway, that's off point. So looking at this, you can see there's a little piece of plastic there, as well as that little cord that I'm going to try to bring around, because right now it goes underneath that little black box, and it looks like it might be rubbing right there. If that's all it is, that would be a super easy fix. But we're going to check it out first and see if that's kind of what's happening on there. All right, and when I'm sliding this on, one thing I'm immediately realizing, that hole doesn't quite want to line up. You can see it is just barely off-centered. It's as if this has twisted like one spline and needs to be twisted this way in order to rotate everything slightly down and into place. And that little bit of friction caused by whenever these bolts are put into this main block off of this cover, that could be putting just enough friction on there to keep that motor from turning over. So that means that there's something inside of here that's hitting, and that would explain why the Kickstart is not able to turn over. So I'm going to try to find an OEM plastic right there to go with that stator. And I'm also going to try to see if this is actually the culprit here. So I'm gonna pull this cover back off and we're gonna check those two things out. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna check here is to see if everything here is lined up. Whenever I pulled this cover off, it slides off like that. So what you want to do, make sure that that is still pushed into this little backing plate here. And this side of the backing plate, you want to slide over this little knob here, and that is what controls your actual shifting in your transmission. So I'm gonna make sure that this is just kind of in a neutral position. First of all, the transmission itself is in neutral. When I say that I want it in a neutral position, I'm just saying I don't want it pulled down or put up as if it's about to shift gears. I want it to be able to just kind of freely move back and forth where it is, no tension on it. So I'm gonna slide this over just like that. So you want it to look like that whenever you pull the, whenever you slide this back into place. All right, so here is an OEM stator. One thing that it is important to point out, make sure that there are the same number of poles on your stator before you order, because there is a 12-pole version and an 18-pole version, all within these same Honda 300 four-wheelers. So if you have the 12-pole version, it goes right in there, and you see as this spins around, it is magnetically able to stay right there without actually touching the sides, whereas an 18 will not go into that little hole. All right, now I do want to point out right now, this is upside down. This portion will go down into the case. As you see, there is no big wire harness that shows when you're looking at it from the top. But for size comparison, I'm going to set it in upside down. And you can see these do look like they're the same size. See, let's go all the way to the top there. You can see that looks even pretty much all the way around. That green might be ever so, I can't tell if that green is ever so slightly bigger or not, but I think that the actual stator itself is not the problem. I think that this little connection is the problem, because if you look at the shape of this, it is flush all the way down, whereas this one has a little lip. You can see I can catch my finger there versus I don't catch my finger on either side there. So I think that this little piece right here is our problem. So I'm gonna swap that out and I'll show y'all how to do that. It's just gonna be a 10 mil here, and then I forget what size hex nuts these are, or Allen wrenches, Allen keys, whatever you wanna call them. But it is not a torque spit. Do not put a torque spit in there because you will strip these bolts out. But, so I'm gonna take off this slides out, and then I'll take off these two Allen key bolts there. All right, a small clarification. I was correct, this is a 10 mil. These are both 4mm Allens. So I just have one of these little blocks, makes all my Allen keys all in one place, but you can use pretty much whatever size you want, but you do want it to be that 4mm there. All right, now when you look at these two side by side, you can clearly see what the issue was. So you can see this is where it was rubbing. You can see how much over, so that is even there. Look how much that covers in comparison to this hole there. Versus, and even if you flip it around, it's a little better, but still covers over half of that hole underneath. Versus an OEM one sits just like that, and it covers about 1/4 of it. But yeah, it definitely goes in just like that. But that gives us Not a ton more space, but that little couple millimeters would be the difference in this thing hitting and this one not. So we're gonna give this a shot here. All it is, you plug in your wire harness there, just like that. I'll get that kind of centered up more, and then put it all back together how it was. All right, another thing I just noticed, this does not lay flat with that metal there. And it almost, on this little piece, it looks like this edge here is catching on that flywheel as well. I keep calling that the flywheel. I'm not actually sure. But so I'm gonna take this off and see if I can push this down into there to make it sit more flush. If not, I'm just gonna replace this entire stator. All right, so I went ahead and just loosely placed this in, and it appears that it does not sit flush either. It was hooking a little bit. There was a chunk of plastic that was sitting in that little gap right here, which is where this is supposed to sit down into, and so that would be the reason it was sticking up as high as it was. But I believe, yeah, it was a little piece like that. So there's little chunks of plastic. I'm gonna have to go through this thing and make sure none of the oil ports especially are covered by those little chunks of plastic that had melted off from that other piece. So it'll take me a little bit to do all that, but I'm gonna clean all these like little shavings right here out. But I believe that this will be okay sitting how it did. But we're gonna go ahead and put it back in there and get this thing all tidied back up. All right, I've got this all replaced and set in there nicely. The last thing I'm gonna do, this actually comes off of the starter here, so I'm gonna make sure this all still lines up well. And that is on there. And so now I'm going to slide it back onto the side and see if our Kickstart is working. All right, so I have it this close. I did end up taking this little starter gear off because I kept catching it on this little gear here. So, but what I wanted to show you, that now moves more freely. And so this can line up now. So when I try, I like to push from right around here. Oh, that actually might have just clicked it all in. Nope, not quite. But, so then I push just kind of evenly around the case. And there's that last little click. This likes to be the last thing that pushes in, but it's what you need to line up with it first as well. This is kind of your catching point because there's all these ridges that it likes to catch this little gasket on. But as you can see, that is just about closed up. I'll put, oh, there it goes. That is all the way closed up now. So now, before I even hook up this starter again, because I know that that doesn't have anything to do with my turning over, I'm going to go to the other side and make sure that this will still freely turn over, and hopefully this fixed the issue. All right, so we're back over here, and let's see how it does. Make sure that's all the way pushed in. You have to line it up with those gears there, and there's also a little spring you want to hook over just like that. So I'm gonna turn this over. Remember, only turn it by hand. Do not try to kick it over with this side case off. But, yep, much easier. All right, so that means that for me, that was the problem. If your kickstand is locked up, but your motor will spin freely, you might look into something like that. Just something blocking the flywheel from turning over freely. I've also seen this portion of the case break off and catch this gear here. But there shouldn't be any reason your Kickstart does not turn over if you can freely spin your motor over. And so freely spinning would be backward. And you can see I can do that by hand. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it helped a little bit, and you have a great rest of your day.